Honourable Member St James North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to make a contribution in support of this bill before Parliament today, ably led by the Honourable Member for St. Peter. The Social Security and National Insurance is one of the most significant socio-economic policy aspects of any society, any part of the world. In the United States, of course, Social Security came in the early 1930s in the aftermath of the tremendous economic difficulties that country had in the 1920s with the collapse of a lot of businesses and cartels, and in the aftermath, of course, of the First World War in the earlier part of the century. England, of course, which was our colonial power, subsequently got Social Security legislation as well, and we, as an independent country, would have legislated this social policy area, 1967, shortly after our independence, and it's played a tremendous role in our national development. Perhaps the majority of our people do not understand the importance of the role and the importance of paying national insurance and the importance it has played in our development. And in this, we, in my submission, need to do more public outreach and inform our people as to its significance. Even our children should be part of our civic discussions at school level among children as to the importance and the necessity to pay national insurance contributions when you start to work. This is an area which needed reform. It was recognized as needing reform for years. The tin, so to speak, was kicked down the line under the last administration, and it fell to this administration to carry out the reforms. And it is, in my opinion, extremely hypocritical for those on the other side of the political fence to be criticizing what this government has embarked on and is continuing to embark on in terms of Social Security reform. The scheme couldn't go on as is, and this government has taken the extremely wise and humane decision to push back a lot of the reforms to give people the opportunity. So therefore, the increase in age at which the pensionable age to 67 is going to be a two-step process, first in 1927 and then in 1933, a whole decade from now. The contributions aspect, to raise the contributions from 500 to 750 to acquire a full pension is wise and is sensible. And after all, 750 contributions, what? When you divide that by the amount of months, it is what, 15 years or so? Paying every month or every week. That is reasonable to arts of a population for the benefits that you will get. We are an aging society. It is shown that, over 50% of our people, I believe it is, would be 60 years or over by the middle of this century. It is a forward-thinking government that has done what we have done now for the second time within 4 months, bringing Social Security and National Insurance legislation to this Parliament, plus a ministerial statement. It had to be done. And those who criticize what this government has done clearly do not understand the business of governance and the responsibility of being a political directorate and serving the people and looking out in the best interests of the people of this country. But why we're back here today, sir, has great emphasis on the issues of self-employment, benefits to self-employed persons, which has been a challenge in terms of getting self-employed people to pay the contributions which they ought to be paying to the scheme. We have heard, sir, today and previously that only about 15% of the self-employed people in this country pay into the scheme. I don't believe that we have accuracy in terms of the number of self-employed people there are, because as has been said today, sir, for instance, people may have a contract service job, yes, but on the side as hassle, they're doing the side work too. Nothing wrong with that. Whether it's on weekends after their normal work hours, sir. And they are being counted for as self-employed for these purposes, sir, because they can go and register, even register online, and pay towards NIS as a self-employed person to top up their contributions and the amount, their pensionable amount that they will get when they reach retirement age. So they have to be counted too as self-employed persons. So I don't know if across the ministries there is a figure for who are the amount of people who are self-employed in this country. What I do know though, sir, is that self-employment and by its natural corollary, small business, mid-sized business, micro businesses account for a significant percentage of the gross domestic product of this country, as it does for most countries. Small business and self-employment, sir, makes up a significant percentage of the economy of a country. And in my constituency, St. James North, there are many self-employed persons, sir, who have taken advantage of course, the fact that my constituency is one of the constituencies that benefit most from our tourism product. And of course, you have people therefore selling their services and their goods to tourists and also, of course, to Barbadians. That itself brings its challenges though, sir, because of course, as we all know, tourism in this country is still to a large extent seasonal. We're about to embark on the high tourist season now for the next 5 months or so, but it is seasonal, and therefore the platform by which self-employed persons can pay a one-off amount into the NIS as their contribution each year, or pay 3 times a year, depending on how the money coming in, how the income coming in, is extremely wise and realistic. That is understanding the dynamics of society, our society, and our people in terms of their income earning ability and capacity. The issue, though, sir, is that self-employed people, and I join the chorus, if you want to call it that, or anyone wants to call it that, of members of Parliament here today who are calling on, urging, begging those who are self-employed, those who right now do not pay any national insurance, to pay. This is our month of independence. We all say that we are patriots, we love Barbados. But Barbados doesn't operate in a vacuum out there, sustaining itself. Barbados has to be sustained and grow and developed by the contribution of our people. Well, people is our people are our major source of resource. And it can't be that you have people, I think the word used earlier by the Honourable Member for St. Peter was somewhat less people, who feel that you must take out of Barbados, but not put in. But life doesn't work that way. It can be that there are people who feel that I'm going to sit back and still get a non-contributory pension at the end of the day, but don't put in anything into the scheme, but expect that the integrity of the scheme is going to be maintained. We've heard often in this Parliament that about $155 million was spent by the National Insurance Office to sustain Barbados and Barbadians during the 2.5 years that we fought valiantly and won against COVID, to keep Barbadians alive, to sustain Barbadians, to pay them an income. Self-employed people getting $1,500, I believe it was, over a 3-week period or 4-week period of time when the country was on lockdown and only essential workers could go to work. But there's a cost to that. The money doesn't fly out of the sky like manna. You have to put back in to get out. And I'm calling on Barbadians in this, our month of independence, when everyone is filled with national pride, wearing the colors, wearing the pins, the flags on the car, the houses, to realize that their national duty is to contribute. The Honourable Member for Christchurch, he spoke earlier about professionals who don't pay. Yes, it's a fact. A lot of members of the legal profession, the accounts profession, medicine, don't pay. Top earners, income earners among self-employed in this country. I myself, as an attorney at law, started to pay NIS within the first 4 years of my law practice. Not at the maximum amount that I could have paid in terms of the income that I made, but I paid some. Every 3 quarters, I think I paid. Every quarter, sorry. Because I felt not only that it was important and within my interest to pay, but because it was my national duty to pay. But additional to that, sir, people who are regarded as not professional people, but I regard them as professionals, sir, because they earn more income than a lot of lawyers and a lot of doctors and a lot of accountants, tradespeople, plumbers, electricians. They don't pay either, a lot of them, sir. And I mean, a plumber with whom I'm very close, I was urging him all the time to pay. And he came to Christian understanding when, regrettably, he had a back injury. So he couldn't earn income for about 6 months. And he said, but Mr. Hinkson, when I checked with him last year, he told me, but I start paying NIS now. And you know, COVID was terrible, terrible. I would not want to see anything like that again in my lifetime. But it had some benefits, because surely it must have taught some of us who weren't paying that you need to pay. Because if your income drops substantially, you're not working, you have to draw on the benefits of the NIS. It's our lifeline, as the saying goes. So I trust that many people, many self-employed persons who were not paying before COVID came along, understand that they need to pay now. But you know, some of us believe, you know, money flowing in, and we only live in for now. We live in for the time being. We're not thinking about our future or about even our children in some cases. But you have to plan. That is what life is about. And I urge Barbadians not to spend all the money that they're making now on things that, quite honestly, are not as important as NIS. Whether it's clothes, whether it's fancy hair, long nails, the woman, fancy clothes, shoes, the men. But put money aside for NIS. This government is giving you the full ambit to pay. Pay online, pay when you have money, minimum of $1,200 a year. Back pay contributions with a bit of interest, 5%, we heard from the Honourable Minister of Labour. But you could back pay some because, yes, some people have fallen short by 10 contributions from the 500 in the past and are in anguish. So you're creating the realistic platform whereby people can pay, going back 3 years, contributions that they ought to have made then, but they didn't make. And this is what a caring government does. The issue, sir, of the provision that the funding policy should be laid in Parliament once handed to the minister is very transparent, sir. I believe that this would be the first time there will be legislative provision for that the funding policy developed by what would be called the service, National Insurance and Social Security Service, has to be laid in Parliament, come to the public knowledge. And the minister has, within 6 weeks after it has been laid in Parliament, to respond. And I'm assuming, sir, that response would have to be given in Parliament too. That can't be any response that between friends and secret. That response would have to be in Parliament as well for the public to be given the response. The provision, sir, that the actuarial review must be done within 3 years of the establishment of this act, and thereafter within 3 years following is very wise, sir. And I trust that the board and the present minister and future ministers would ensure that that is compiled with actuarial reviews, because in the past that hasn't been followed to the letter. But clearly it should be in terms so that at all times the Parliament of Barbados and the public, through the Parliament, of course, the public of Barbados know about where we're at in terms of the funding and the stability and integrity of the scheme, which is very important. In terms of employment injury benefits, sir, for self-employed persons, this is extremely important, sir, because we're talking here about someone who has a disability, whether it is temporary or permanent, being able to access employment injury benefits through the NIS. Of course, again, once they have paid and contributed to the scheme. And this is where it's important, because regrettably, sir, anybody, as we've said all the time, can get an injury tonight, God forbid, and be out, life going along well, car accident, fall, whatever, and you're laid up 6 months if you're lucky, more if you're struggling, sir. And no income coming in from your self-employment or employment, and therefore you have to depend on government, sir. Government is always the fallback position, especially in this Barbados, sir. And I know about this, the challenge and the significance of this provision, sir, because people all over Barbados call me, sir. Well, I don't have any formal position now in government in terms of disabilities, but people feel so. I mean, a third of a century in the cause as a disability advocate, sir. So people all over Barbados, all constituents of every member of Parliament in here, sir, call me, message me, WhatsApp me, email me for advice. Now have a disability, they were employed, not getting any income, what help they could get, sir. And right now, what it is, Ministry of People Empowerment, that under tremendous pressure, might give you a little grant or a little welfare. We now have the 1,000 families, sir, that you're helping. But this is, if there's any reason why self-employed people should contribute to the NIS scheme, it is this. Because the employment industry benefits now, of which was spoken in terms, I believe, of the ministerial statement, and which is part of this whole policy and legislative and regulatory setup, sir, is very important. Because to have a disability and not have income coming in readily, and therefore having to go through the bureaucracy of our welfare system, which is being reformed now, and which I hope that the Honourable Member for St. Michael South will shortly be able to inform the public of Barbados in concrete terms as to the reform. You know, it has to be brought into play. But it's only so much that our welfare platform can do as well. And the people have to make it easier, not only for the administration and our people and our government with the limited financial resources that we have, but easier for themselves as well. The issue, sir, of CARICOM, sir, and I speak to this, sir, it hasn't been raised before today, but as we all know, our heads of government have committed our CARICOM statehood to come to closer union in terms of full freedom of movement. I believe the date given at present is March 31st next year. And I know that discussions are going on at many levels, drafting committees, implementation committees, policy committees in various areas on this. As we all know, right now we have freedom of movement among skilled nationals. Barbados recognizes, I think it's 12 skilled nationals at present. But if we're talking about full freedom of movement between our CARICOM sister nations, something that is present already in our sub-regional group, the OEMCS, those 7-8 countries, they have full freedom of movement. Issues as to transferability of social security benefits is of prime importance. And therefore we have to get this right, sir. In 1996 in Georgetown, the CARICOM nations would have signed an agreement allowing for transferability of national insurance and social security benefits among CARICOM nations and peoples. That agreement came into effect in April or May 1997. So for example, a Guyanese worker, whether employed or self-employed in Guyana, who comes and lives here, can have the benefits in Guyana, which would have accrued in Guyana, added to the benefits here on retirement to bring up the amount of pension that they will get. Barbados, of course, would be obliged to pay the percentage of the benefits which would have accrued while they were working in Barbados. The Treaty of Chaguaramas, the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, which came into effect, I think it was in 2005, sir, would have enhanced those rights. I think it's section, clause 237 that speaks about contingency rights, which would be health and education and national insurance, social security benefits, sir. So the national insurance scheme services, as it would be called after the establishment of this act, has a primary duty, sir, and responsibility at CARICOM level to ensure that people can get their benefits as they move across our CARICOM nation, seeking work and obtaining work, either as employed persons, employed by companies, etc., which would have the responsibility, enterprises, to deal with their NIS, but also as self-employed persons, sir. And if it is that the service needs more resources to take on this so that there are no challenges, sir, I would be all for them getting the resources, sir, and for monies to be voted in this parliament to make that will cause the service national insurance set up to be more efficient in this regard and to be able to respond better to its customers and to the public. The issue, and the Honourable Member for St. George North spoke earlier today, and of course her tremendous experience as a trade unionist, trade union and a labour movement practitioner is unmatched in this parliament, sir. And she spoke correctly on the issue of government and the need for governments, government institutions and departments to come up to smarts on this issue. So we know that in some cases, traditionally, sir, we are not only talking about now. I mean, when I was chairman of NCC, sir, and that was, 28 years ago, NCC never used to pay or didn't pay much of the employees' contributions into NIS. I think at one time about $6 million was owed, sir. Even though, we used to urge, and then yes, the Honourable Member for Christchurch West is correct. Legislation came in, the VAT Act, and I believe they had an amendment to the NIS Act then too, around 1997, the VAT Act came in that said directors would be liable. So every meeting, I used to ensure that the management bring the figures before the board and it be noted on the records of the minutes, the board has directed the management to pay the NIS, to pay the VAT, whatever statutory contributions owing. Because that of course, you had the out there. You had the out. You made your best efforts to ensure that the corporation pay. So government also has to ensure that it pay up the national insurance benefits of its employees. And yes, the Honourable Member for St. George North is correct. I mean, it isn't that the NIS is going to deny a government employee who is on maternity leave, or just had a child, maternity benefits where her employer institution is in arrears at NIS. But all of this is part of proper governance structure. And we as a government institutions, departments, statutory boards, have to set the example in this regard. So the classic case, without referring specifically to it, but again, it came up, at least the concept, the issue came up for debate earlier, was that we employed as workers, sir, and nobly, sir, as the Honourable Member for St. George North said, they were only initially contracted to work 3 weeks, but it went on and on for 2 years, sir, because this government accepted that you couldn't send home. In all, it's close to 4,000 people the government employed during COVID. What are we going to do? How are we going to get money? Well, welfare didn't have all the money you could support them. So you continue to employ as workers, sir. But initially, there was no payment of NIS for them. So there was a situation, a constituent of mine who fell in a well, sir. And yes, I called up the government department, the Ministry of Transport, and said, but look, y'all gotta continue paying this lady her income. Well, she got an injury on the job, fell in a well, going, not knowing that the well there, of course, leg broken. And the Ministry of Transport, yes, continued to pay her the weekly wages. But the issue came up then as to no compensation for personal injuries, loss and damage, and of course consequential losses and damage as well. And I commend the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister for Public Works, Transport, member for St. Michael East, for intervening.
Southeast.
Sorry.
Southeast.
What did I say?
East.
I said south.
You said east.
Oh, I said east, sorry. Southeast. For intervening in this matter when it was brought to her attention. I'm not the attorney at law involved, but she intervened when it was brought to her attention and intervened immediately where her ministry's legal advice was within the strict corners of the law, that the ministry had no legal responsibility to pay personal injury settlement to this lady, my constituent. But clearly, the ministry had a moral responsibility because these niceties, sir, as you know, sir, a leading British judge once said that the law, I don't want to say, you know the word, sir. I'm not so sure whether that word is parliamentary or not.
I don't think it is.
It isn't parliamentary.
It's not parliamentary.
It isn't parliamentary, sir. But to paraphrase, he said the law is a lot of foolishness sometimes. And that is true. The law is a lot of foolishness sometimes. So you can't go by the strict corners of the law and say this lady who injured on the job, fall down in a well, right? Not able to work, that the Ministry of Transport or the government not responsible to pay her an ex gratia personal injury settlement, sir, because it don't come within the four corners of foolish law. The Honourable member intervened, and I believe a settlement is being worked out. That is what a caring government is about, sir. But that exemplified what I'm speaking about, sir, the duty of a government to not get involved in these contractor services that somewhat less private sector employees getting into, sir, contracting out services and telling you that you're self-employed independent contractor, even though they're controlling your work, your hours of work, what you're doing, sir. And this has to be addressed quite honestly, sir. So government has to take the lead. I do call as well, though, on the private sector not to take out money out of your employee's salary and not pay it in. I know, sir. I know, because I'm an attorney at law, so therefore I have had throughout my years businesses as clients and being involved in businesses. I know that money could be tight sometimes, that's the truth. But you can't be taking out the employee's portion of NIS and not paying it into the NIS, because you paying it, you keeping it to sustain your business, and in a lot of cases, the employee don't even know that the money not being paid. And when they retire, they're going out to NIS to try to get something to hear the money there for them, sir. And really and truly, I call in here today too, sir, on the NIS and the authorities to prosecute more people on this issue. Is order to get the unpaid debt certificate and to register it, but enforce it as well. I know, sir, I know this country, and I know that this is a country where people feel that they could make a phone call and therefore then to get eased off, sir. We got to stop that because it doesn't benefit the country as a whole. It doesn't add to our national development. And in fact, I can argue that it's corrupt practice too. So don't be afraid of anybody enforce the unpaid debt certificates that you have against the private sector people who are guilty of these fraudulent kind of practices against poor people, the poor employees who get taken for a ride.
Your Honourable Member has 2 more minutes.
Yes, sir. So I totally support this bill, sir, and the whole thrust of this administration in terms of reform of its social security system, our social security system, and our national insurance, sir. The results, though, sir, are going to be in the implementation. These are beautiful ideas. We call on the self-employed to register and to pay. It can't be that only 15% of our self-employed people paying into a scheme, sir, that is so fundamental to the socio-economic development of our people. And we look forward, sir, to the reforms. Some of them will take place in January. The move from $500 to $750 contribution. But some will have been put off for a while, as this government has wisely thought fit. I'm obliged to you, sir.